My name is Susan Derwin. I'm the director of the Interdisciplinary Humanities Center, where we all are today, and I'm very happy to welcome you to the IHC. We're all here to listen to our student veterans read stories about their military experiences. These 8 students have all taken part this year in a writing workshop that I've been teaching on campus since 2011. And the stories that you're going to be hearing today have been selected from the many pieces that they've produced throughout the year. I do want to get us started right away so that there's time for questions and discussion after the student veterans read their work. But before we begin, I want to say just one thing, that namely, these students have demonstrated courage and persistence in getting their thoughts down on the page and in shaping them into well-wrought personal narratives, the stories you'll be hearing today. It is truly for me a pleasure and an honor to work with them, and I hope you enjoy and learn from their stories as much as I do. So thank you very much, and please help me to welcome our veterans.
Hello everyone. My name is Adrian Molina-Ochoa, and I'm a 4th year anthropology major. I was in the United States Army from 2010 to 2016 as an automated logistics specialist. So the title of my piece is called Mindlessness. I grew up in one of the toughest neighborhoods in San Francisco, the Mission District, which is known for its vibrant culture and delicious restaurants. But in the evening, it becomes another place, plagued with gangs, drugs, prostitution, and robberies. In my late teens, I ran with the wrong set of people, members of the Norteño gang. A mix of Latino and Black teens. My friends and I used to make money by pulling licks, in other words, committing petty robberies and selling drugs. By the time I was 17, I had been to 1 high school and 3 continuation schools. In my last continuation school, Life Learning Academy, the principal spoke to a judge on my behalf to get me out of a petty robbery charge. Initially, I'd be charged with a felony. After she spoke, the charge was reduced to a misdemeanor. As a punishment, I was given community service. That way my record would remain clean. Not everybody was as lucky as I to have a principal who fought in court for our students. In fact, many of my friends and family members went to juvenile early in their life for petty crimes and for more serious reasons. Most are locked up for at least a decade. I had so many examples in my life of people who had made the wrong decisions. One of them was my cousin, in whose step I was following because I thought it was cool. He had the girls, he had the clothes, and he had a nice car. However, once he was sentenced to prison for attempted murder, I knew this wasn't just a life for me. Thankfully, I had people pulling me away from that life. I had my principal, Carrie Delane, and I also had my mother. Even though she was working 2 jobs, she always tried to push me in the right direction by giving me her love and support. This made me not want to disappoint her or make her cry anymore, as I've done in the past through my reckless decisions. After my cousin went to prison, I knew I did not want to become a statistic. I did not want to be trapped in a city where I was given limited opportunities because of my socio-economical status and my background. That's when I started to pay attention to the United States Army and Marine Corps commercials with the slogans, "The Few, the Proud," and "Army Strong." Hearing these words made me start to dream of a prosperous future. In the ruthless gang environment I had grown accustomed to, such dreams had been impossible. But the words of the slogans gave me hope. They made me believe I could do something meaningful and that I could be helpful to others. I saw what I could become and what I could learn from joining the military: discipline, leadership skills, and teamwork in order to help the weak or less fortunate. When I turned 18, I wanted to talk to a Marine Corps recruiter. I wanted to take up the challenge in order to be part of the few and the proud. However, once I was evaluated, I was told I could not join because my continuation school was not on par of that of the regular high school. In addition, the tattoo on my wrist was against regulations, and it was grounds for automatic disqualification. Disheartened, I was approached by the Army recruiters who told me about their GED program and how they could get me in the right way. I so badly wanted to leave the poverty and violence I had grown accustomed to, and so within 2 weeks, I completed the paperwork and had been assigned a date for departure. August 8, 2010, to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, where the start of my successful future began.
My name is Adrian Mejia. I was a quartermaster in the United States Navy, and I served from 2010 to 2014. I'm a senior in the sociology department. Notebook. Inside the right back pocket of my coveralls, the Navy's working uniform, I carried a small, light green notebook. This small notebook was an essential item to have with me, especially while on deployment. My superiors expressed its importance and mandated that we carry it. They required us to log every task given to us and daily events we needed to attend. To them, it was important because it kept us on track and helped establish good management skills. To me, however, the notebook was for more than work. It allowed me to express myself during hard days and good days, and to know new experiences and things I wanted to improve. On the first page of every notebook I owned, I wrote the Stoic Victorian poem, Invictus, Latin for unconquerable. It was a reminder that no matter how difficult the day might be, I control my life. This became clear to me on my first deployment as our 55-day stretch at sea in the heat of the Indian Ocean was coming to an end and land was ahead. The day before we were to moor, our captain unexpectedly gathered us on the flight deck. The news he gave us was unwanted. The Navy had extended our sea time. It would be another month before we would hit our next port. Later, writing in my notebook, letters formed into words into sentences, little by little filling the blank spaces between the blue lines. The frustration and anger I felt when I heard the news diminished as I wrote my thoughts down in my small green notebook. Such unexpected news, like long work days and stubborn superiors, were inevitable and beyond my control. How I handled these situations, however, was something completely up to me, and the poem in my notebook reminded me of that. Sometimes, in the final minutes of the day, I would draw pictures of the sunset that colored the sky purple and orange. On clear nights, when every star glimmered in the sky, I would also draw in my notebook. After every port visit, I made sure to tape one bill of a foreign currency onto the pages of my notebook. These images and tokens would be future reminders of my travels. Today, I keep my notebook locked away in the chest, along with other items from my Navy career. It's a treasure chest of memories remind me that, although deployments were difficult, they were also an amazing experience I'm grateful to have had. I no longer use a military standard green notebook. Now, I use a black book to log what I can do to better myself and to record my daily, monthly, and yearly goals. I write down my plan for the following day, and I make drawings whenever I see something that catches my eye. My superiors were right. The notebook is important. Today, it's an essential item I carry with me.
I'm Caballaro. I served the United States Army for 4 years, 2013 to 2017, as a health inspector. So I'm a little bit of a germaphobe. And yeah, and so I'm graduating after this spring with a degree in biology. Eraser. In October of 2012, I was an international college student facing deportation for failing 2 classes. I was 22 years old, living in my parents' loft, aimless in academics, and frustrated in competitive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When the United States Army advertised through the Los Angeles Times that they needed Filipinos who spoke the Tagalog language, I felt like Uncle Sam was calling me personally. I had watched HBO's Band of Brothers and testimonies of military valor, and the unifying theme was that soldiers had heard the call. I was convinced that now I was hearing mine though I did not know if I had it in me to answer. To find out, I went down to the Army recruiting station in Tarzana, California. 3 weeks later, I signed on. I first shared the news with my father. He had not been a part of my life when I was growing up in the Philippines. He had left our household when I was 5 years old to work in the Arab Emirates. He only visited my mother and me twice a year for 2 weeks at a time, and it was usually when I was in school, so I didn't see him much. His visits would always begin with a little celebration that was inevitably followed by days of strict discipline. If, for example, he told me to come home from playing outside by 6 o'clock and I came in 15 minutes late, or if I was tinkering with my phone and didn't stop when he asked me to because I was absorbed, he would yell and then he would hit me with a belt. We grew distant, and as I got older and learned to talk and physically fight back, he would get emotional to make me get emotional. He'd call attention to how much he had sacrificed for the well-being of the family, to coerce me to stand down. Needless to say, I was excited to tell him I was enlisting. I would be freed from all the drama. The news made my mother nervous and agitated. She and I had started the pursuit of the American dream together. We had moved to Florida when I was 14. It was a harsh and dreadful experience. We lived with 2 other families, and my mother became a high school teacher. The students mocked her accent, put her down, and made her feel like an outsider. I, on the other hand, was hanging out with my new friends, smoking pot here and there, and acting like an American. So, in the beginning, we didn't start as good partners, but we eventually got into work. However, when my father permanently joined us in the United States, I became the third wheel in a volatile immigrant household, and my position as the reliable man in the family mattered less. The partnership that my mother and I cultivated to survive America for 8 years had come to its end. The night before the plane ride to basic training in Fort Hill, Oklahoma, I and the other recruits stayed in a Sheraton hotel where we were fed a feast of steak and pasta. As I ate, I observed the joyous faces of the other recruits, and I saw their grinning parents who seemed so proud of their children's decision to join an all-volunteer military. I was happy, too, not because I had made a noble decision, but because I could create myself. The Army would be my eraser. If I worked hard enough, I would be able to scrub off my identity as an immigrant, and with it, my failures and frustrations. Then I could write myself anew.
Hello, I'm Scott Rothdeutsch, a senior in the anthropology department here. I was in the United States Navy from 1988 to 1991. And this is an essay of my experience being lost in Catania. Leaving Sigonella Air Base, Sicily, in my rented Fiat subcompact, I turned right on Stratala 192 toward Catania. As I was driving down the highway, I thought back to the events from that morning. I arrived at 0700 to muster for what was supposed to be my flight back to the aircraft carrier, USS Saratoga. Waiting for my name to be called, I couldn't help but feel sad. My month ashore was coming to an end. The flights from my boat to Sigonella, from Sigonella to Frankfurt, Germany, where I spent 3 weeks during Oktoberfest, then a long flight back to Sigonella. They reached the end of the list, but my name had not been called. I wasn't flying back to the USS Saratoga after all. That was fine with me, because it meant I had a couple of days free time before heading back to my boat. I had noticed a car rental center across the room and spontaneously stopped in to rent a car. The rental reminded me of my Ford Festiva back home. White, stick shift, peppy. It was just enough to get around this little island of Sicily. That's what I decided I was going to do. See how far around the island I could drive in 3 days. Now, well on my way to Catania, I realized how beautiful the scenery was. It reminded me of my hometown. The mountains, the ocean, the Mediterranean architecture. It all brought me back to my childhood years, riding around the Santa Barbara foothills with my parents, enjoying the views. I became so absorbed by the scenery that I didn't even notice how far I traveled. I found myself in the middle of town, before the Cathedral of St. Agatha, patron saint of Catania. I was in awe of its intense Baroque styling and stunning beauty. I had to stop and look, so I parked and wandered back a couple of blocks to the cathedral. I must have spent more than an hour on the grounds and in the building. When I decided it was time to get back on the road, I realized I had lost my car. In my eagerness to get to the cathedral, I had forgotten to note where exactly I had parked. The streets split off in 5 different directions, and they all looked the same, with their endless rows of whitewashed buildings. My heart raced. I became disoriented and filled with dread. I feared I'd be stuck here, with no way to get back to the base. I tried to communicate to the local people, but the language barrier was impenetrable. All the cars looked the same. It seemed like everyone drove a Fiat. I recognized a white one and approached it with relief. But when I reached it, I discovered the license plate didn't match the number on my key tag. My heart sank. I must have checked 25 license plates that way. Dejectedly, I spotted yet another white Fiat and walked toward it. I got close enough to read the first couple of digits on the license plate and saw that they matched my key tag. Yes, I cried. I unlocked the door and climbed in, and I sat in the car for what seemed like an hour thinking about the situation I had gotten myself into. The swells of hope and valleys of hopelessness were nothing I ever wanted to feel again. I finished my trip and returned to the base 3 days later. My boat had been located. I would fly out the next day. I was relieved, and I doubted I would ever see this island again.
Hello, my name is Rutherford. I was in an artillery unit in the United States Marine Corps from 2011 to 2015. I'm currently a junior here in the sociology department, and this is called Honey Truck. I didn't have much contact with those not serving in the Marine Corps while on my deployment, but one person who remains in my memory is the man from the Honey Truck. The Honey Truck was the name given to the large truck that showed up a few times a week in order to pump the waste out of the porta potties, since running water wasn't available on our outpost in Afghanistan. Each time the man arrived, I would have to pat him down and question him. He was this very small gay man. He tried countless times to talk to me, winking at me, asking if we would hang out later and have some fun together. His constant attempts to flirt with me wore me down and soured my feelings towards him. I truly dreaded seeing him show up each day. I therefore paid him as little attention as I could. I just tried to get my job done so he could start his. I've never had a weak stomach, but unless you've seen the remains of deployment food being pumped through a clear pipe, you wouldn't understand how hard it is to be around him while he completed his work. I would have to stand nearby and watch him until he had finished, then escort him off base. The job was inherently filthy, but the lack of uniform or proper equipment made the task even worse. Shit would get everywhere. Inside his clothes, on his arms, covering the ground, and then he would spray it all down with a pressure washer. The smell, a mix of dirty water and rotting human waste, permanently stained the walls of my brain. I remember wondering how someone could wake up in the morning and have the strength to get out of bed, knowing full well what his day would be like. I thought I was mentally strong, yet as I watched this man each day, my respect and admiration for him grew. I was in awe of his ability to withstand such misery. I never got his name or learned any details about his life, but I tried to imagine the circumstances that had driven him to persist in this line of work. Surely there had to be better jobs out there. Did he have a family? Did the job pay well? How did he even start in this line of work? I learned many things from this man, who remains a mystery to me. His example taught me to be humble in all situations, and to not judge people based on their line of work. Often, when life has me feeling overwhelmed or when malaise sets in, I think back to that Afghan man and remind myself just what humans are capable of living through. This, in turn, allows me to stand tall in the face of life's struggles, knowing full well it could be far worse. My life may not be as sweet as honey, but it will never be as unsavory as a honey truck.
Hi, I'm Weidner. I was a flight medic in the U.S. Air Force from 2002 to 2010. I am a fifth-year senior in the psychology department. I'm planning on graduating. No, sixth year for me. This piece is called The Encounter. One February morning in 2006, a Delta team brought into Balad Air Base Hospital a wounded Iraqi insurgent. As they carried him in past me, I noticed his dark hair, nearly black, and dark skin, only made darker by the dirt and blood coating it. One of the soldiers holding the stretcher had a smug look on his face, yet he seemed to be hiding something more painful. As he placed the wounded man down, he looked at me and said, "He shot my brother, but I got that son of a bitch. Hopefully you won't try too hard to save him." Then he walked out. The soldier's words had me take a step back, but I knew, morally, I couldn't do as he undoubtedly wanted me to. I quickly began working on the wounded insurgent, placing another intravenous catheter in his arm, assessing his body for any other wounds, and prepping him for surgery. I contemplated for a moment what it would be like to leave this severely wounded man to his fate. I was so very tired of saying goodbye to fallen brothers and sisters taken by men like him. Yet those thoughts were merely thoughts. I could never act upon them, no matter how much I wish I could. Before I knew it, the operating team whisked him away to surgery, and my chance to acting on those thoughts was gone. 2 hours later, he was finally out of surgery and back in my hands for post-operative care. Once again, I was at war with myself over taking care of him, but I treated him as if he was my own child. When night fell, I prepped him to be flown to Abu Ghraib, the main prison for U.S. enemies. A feeling of relief washed over me I hadn't known I needed. This man was never outwardly violent towards me, but he had looked at me with a continual glower that left me feeling exposed and anxious. Even though I felt his animosity, I was never rough or crude, only gentle and kind, as if he were any other patient. I strapped him into the stretcher and locked him in place, feeling more confident now that I was flying with him immobilized. With my flight gear on, I grabbed my weapon and headed to the helipad with the patient. Once on board, it was lights out. The sky was moonless, which left the inside of the helicopter so dark it was as if my eyes had been taken from me. No longer able to see, and because the military was too cheap to issue me a pair of night vision goggles, I was left feeling uneasy about not being able to see the patient before me. Halfway into our flight to Abu Ghraib, I felt my leg being yanked and the lower part of my body pummeled by unseen hands. His strength was more than I could fend off. He was wounded, but his desire for freedom was greater than his fear of bursting his stitches. I fought back, trying to stop his brutal attempt to free himself. My call for help was swallowed up by the thunderous noise of the propellers above, thus leaving me in the dark to fend for myself. Finally, my hand found the large mag light beside me. I turned on the light. Illuminating the space in a red glow, I was able to see my assailant's face. Eyes crazed, face pulled back in derangement, and arms still swinging. He looked scarier than the devil himself. The hatred and violence coming from him stunned me, repelling my forward momentum. Fortunately, That split second of stalling was time enough for the crew chief to grab the maglite and beat the man off me. Free of his attack, I grabbed 20 milligrams of morphine and injected him with it. The medication quickly subdued him, and he fell into a deep sleep. Although he was put out for the rest of the night and we were able to complete our journey, this experience remains forever awake inside of me. It haunts my dreams, but it has not changed who I am. Through and through, I am a healer. I fight tooth and nail to keep the wounded alive. When there is nothing left that we can do, I stand vigil, holding their hand, brushing their hair back, and singing a gentle lullaby as they drift off one last time. No matter the circumstance, I will still be there to give whatever care is needed. I am neither judge nor jury, nor God himself. Therefore, my duty to stand strong on my moral ground far surpasses my wants and desires. If anything, this incident has affirmed my belief in doing what is right and just for humanity.
Shipe. I'm a history major. I graduated in a couple weeks. I served in the Army from 2010 to 2014 as an artilleryman, and I wrote this piece about my decision to enlist. That's probably a good idea, the judge said to me when I handed him the letter from the Army recruiter asking for leniency so that I could enlist. Your enlistment in the military would benefit the community, he continued. At the time, I thought that was a really cool thing to hear in a courtroom. A few months later, when I thought about it more deeply, I realized what the judge had meant. My hometown of Santa Cruz, California would benefit from my leaving, wherever I might be sent. It was clear that I was out of harmony with my community and that I needed a timeout of sorts. It was January 2010, and I had graduated from high school 6 months earlier. Though I never fancied myself a criminal, I was cultivating a very respectable rap sheet for someone who had just legally become an adult. Already I'd been in court 4 times since I graduated. The word potential had been floating around me since I was a child, but its meaning had changed throughout the years from "he has a bright future" to "what went wrong." When I began flirting with the idea of joining the military, I was living at home and playing baseball at the local junior college, having recently lost a scholarship to the University of Oregon. Late one night, I decided to check out the Marine Corps website. The few, the proud mantra seemed pretty badass, and I liked the idea of an anchor and globe tattoo on my forearm. I figured that if I couldn't play D1 baseball, being a warrior was the next best thing. After I filled out some basic information on the website, a recruiter called me in the next day, eager to get me in to see him. I went in, heard what he had to say, and walked out of his office with some pamphlets, feeling unimpressed by his presentation and giving little thought to enlisting. Later that night, I totaled my car and spent the night in jail. A couple days later, I went back to the same recruiter and told him the good news. I was ready to join. After explaining what happened, he looked at me as if he smelled a fart and advised that maybe the Army would still be interested. Damn, I thought, not even the Marine Corps wants me. I was devastated that even my backup plan had fallen through. I walked across the hall to the Army recruiting station, figuring they would be willing to pick up the Marine Corps scraps, and saw some guy looking at me like he was expecting me, and I was right on time. I told him about my most recent arrest, and he assured me that it wasn't an issue, that the Marine Corps was stuck up and their uniforms were the only thing cool about them. I do the same stuff in the Army, but with better equipment. When I called my dad later that day to tell him that I had gotten arrested again, but that it was all good because I was joining the Army, in a worn-out, emotionless voice, he said, "That's probably a good idea."
Hello, my name is Bradley Fry, and I served in the United States Army from 2008 to 2014. I'm a junior in Humanities. Lost and found. The dim headlights of my pickup strained against the darkness of the moonless night, but did little to illuminate the quickly onrushing dirt road. My eyes drifted downward toward the dash as the needle on the speedometer crept slowly forward with what seemed an impossible certainty. Every bump and rattle caused by the uneven road sent a jolt of adrenaline through my body, obscuring what was reality and what was fantasy. Breathe, I told myself in an effort to calm the heat in my chest. This road, this piece of desert, it all seemed as familiar as it was strange and foreign. Slowly, the adrenaline receded, and I was able to regain control of my foot, which up to this point had been pinning the accelerator to the floor. This isn't Afghanistan, I told myself with a shaky uncertainty. Again, this isn't Afghanistan. And with that, the spell that had held me disappeared. The torrential momentum of gravel rushing underneath the oversized tires of the truck finally slowed and then ceased completely. As I reached for the emergency brake with a trembling hand, a single thought crossed my mind. Now what? The empty desert landscape peered back at me, as if waiting for the answer to my question. I glanced at my phone. The screen flashed to life and showed what I had already known it would say: no service. A faint smell of sagebrush wafted through the open driver window and joined the gentle idle of the truck's engine as my only companions in that moment. That had crashed over me with the energy of a dam bursting now slowly receded and allowed me the luxury of clear thought. I felt completely and utterly lost in a way I had never experienced before. The facade of functionality I had built since leaving the military had come crashing down, but I was the only witness to its demise. Perhaps I could still pretend my experiences hadn't affected me, or maybe this was the beginning of a long spiral downward. I could see both paths laid out in front of me, but I did not know which one I was on. My hand, already knowing what had to be done, reached back over to release the emergency brake before pausing as the smooth plastic entered its grip. Breathe, you can do this. I wondered how insane this would look, were anyone here to see it, a man whose nerves had abandoned him. But the only witness was the desert. I tried to concentrate on one action at a time, turn the truck around, retrace my route, find the paved road, find the highway, and finally turn westward towards home. As the road carried me up into the mountains and towards safety, I dared a final look in the rearview mirror, back towards the desert. Down there, just a few hours before, something inside me had broken for a moment. As I turned the volume on the radio all the way up, everything that had happened seemed to melt away, and I decided that, at least for another day, I would ignore it.
Okay. Well, I think our writers are happy to take questions or comments or thoughts, so we're turning on the mics, and raise your hand, and we'll...
The regular students, has that changed at all, or are you still separated from the regular student body?
I think that's a challenge for us, because we do experience that.
Louder.
I think that's a challenge for us. That's still a challenge, is to be, so we go into this sort of world where we are in our own military world, right? And then when we get out, it's difficult to reassociate back to society. But I think that's what makes this program so helpful, because this allows to be that sort of bridge to see what we've missed while we were gone. So at least for me, it's still true.
I think it depends on the veteran. Some choose to completely integrate themselves with the other students and not seek out like other veterans. And then others seek out the familiarity of being in that veteran community. So it really depends on the individual how they choose to go about it.
When I first got out of the Army in 1967, there was nothing. And now this is such a wonderful program that you guys have here. And it's just amazing to hear your stories. And every one of your stories is a little piece of me in there. And it's healing to hear the same feelings that you guys put out there. And I'm so glad that they have this program for you guys. The writing program, student veterans, offices, and everything. And thank you. I know that term is terrible. It's really an honor to be in your presence. So
actually do want to make a comment to that. This is my second time going through this class because it is so emotional. The first time I went through, I was not able to deal with it. But Professor Durham was amazing, and I was able to do some side stuff with her, and then I figured out my own stuff and came back and was really able to creatively dive into my stories and figure them out internally where I can express it outside. And it's been very helpful, and it's fantastic to sit with a group of veterans that can share their stories too, and it makes you not feel so alone. Because yes, you're at a huge university, and there's so many students that are, young and fresh out of high school, and I'm not. So it's good to experience this experience with other veterans. It's a fantastic program.
First of all, they also did a great job of showing and not telling. And I had such great visuals on all the stories. So really great. But I heard a couple of things, and it's kind of what everybody's saying, that even before you went into the military, it was kind of like, I don't belong, looking for a spot. And you went in the military, and you kind of didn't have a spot, and now you're back out. And some of you have kind of threads, like you got your notebook, and you get your healer. But I just kind of want to know, probably no one has a plan, but you feel, not ACSB, I understand it's really good, but just in general, you seem to assimilate better, like in your neighborhood, or with your families, or something. Just wondering how you feel coming back with a little more perspective, age.
Yeah, once again, it kind of does vary for each person, because some of us had more pleasant experiences than others, and some had pretty not so fun ones. So you do see, and you see it even at the Veteran Center, because we also have the dependents there. It's sort of almost like a bridge. I think having them there has been a positive, because it's a bridge, almost like a way for us to practice interacting with everyday people, since they're a little bit closer, because obviously there are jokes, stories, and things that we do and say at the Veteran Center that wouldn't be accepted in general public. And that it kind of gives us an ability to practice, that. And so integrating is, difficult for each person or easy for each person. But on the whole, I think it has been a slow process, and this included of kind of learning how to talk to people about the things we've experienced without being so closed-minded and they won't understand kind of thoughts.
Anyone else want to speak? I think for me, it's a little bit difficult. I tend to not let people know that I was a veteran because I do sometimes feel ostracized. And so I try most of the time to move through my life like nothing ever happened, and I'm going to keep going. Is it helpful? Probably not. But I think it also stems that I don't have great support of my family. They kind of like brush it to the side and don't acknowledge my military career or sacrifice or anything like that. And so I think for me it's probably more of a protective measure. But again, I think doing this class has helped me be a little bit more comfortable with it. And so I'm hoping that it'll, once I graduate and move on to my doctorates, that it'll be a little bit easier for me to incorporate into more civilian world.
Well, for me, I absolutely hated UCSB my first year. And then, so I was very cynical, very nihilistic, right? And then I joined Professor Durham's summer program. And I was just able to open up and be more vulnerable in an honest way, not like be vulnerable in a venting way. It's like making excuses for bad stuff that happened. So, but just being vulnerable, I was able to be more open. And then from that, I had fun during my second year here. So I would say just the process of writing it out and being more open heals a lot of wounds.
Thank you so much for all your stories, sharing with us. Thank you. I would like to ask you guys, why did you choose to write? And what was your experience like just now to share your stories in public to people that you do not know?
Well, sharing our stories with that practice is sharing with each other in the classroom, but when I was sitting here, listening to everyone else's stories, I kind of had second thoughts about, I don't know if I want to share my story to all these people. But generally it's been a great experience because it kind of breaks down the wall of communication, and I'm able to express myself about my military service. And it's been great because I've been able to do that with my family also before I wasn't able to like really talk about some of the things I went through, and so it's really it's been great.
I took the class for the units, but I got a lot more out of it than just the units. But it helped me internalize a lot of the emotions that I still had built up. I had a lot of resentments towards the military and just kind of that experience. And I don't know, I mean, it was kind of cathartic to be able to write amongst like a small group of veterans that had a similar experience. In terms of how this was, it wasn't cathartic, I was just nervous.
For me, it was definitely nerve-wracking. I'm also the little girl up here, so I'm a little left out. But like I said before, writing, it's very difficult. Sometimes, I kid you not, I have to have 1 or 2 glasses of wine to get my paper written because I still have a hard time feeling those feelings and writing those emotions and showing it and not telling it. And so it's been cathartic and I enjoyed it and I was terrified of being up there. But I think it's also really freeing at the same time.
Why did you choose to write?
Why did I choose to write? I feel like I have things to say. I think it's because I stuff it all the time, and I don't share, I don't let people know. I have 2 kids too, and so they don't know a lot of my stories. And I think getting older and being a psych major, I'm really kind of honing in on trying to be more open with myself and true to myself, and I think these stories are things that need to come out now.
Yeah, I chose to write based solely on the fact that some of the previous veterans had taken the class and they had said that it probably would have been a good thing for me to do. So I decided, I'll take them up on their word. I had the easy job. My writing was my most humorous one that I wrote. So I wasn't so nervous because mine wasn't too revealing, which is something that I struggled with, and even amongst veterans in writing, I still struggle showing and not just like reporting certain things, and that's been something I've been trying to work on. I've gotten better, I hope, a little bit at kind of letting people see behind what I normally show everyone, and so that's been a real positive. But this was the easy part for me, so.
I think it was pretty nerve-wracking being up here reading. But as far as the writing class, I enjoyed it a lot. I like to write, but I think the thing that I liked most about this class was the comments. We read it to our classmates and they tell us what we need to improve. So just opening it up to a small group of individuals and them giving you their honest feedback and constructive criticism of that a lot. So that's my favorite part of the class.
I never speak at events like this. I would rather not. But I have to say that the writing we heard today is writing from a workshop and writing because you're veterans and writing about personal experiences, but it's also professional level writing.
Yeah.
And I know it when I see it.
They're good. They work.
Thanks.
You mean the ROTC, is that what they're talking about?
Students who are military.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually don't have much contact with the ROTC people. It's gone poorly in previous interactions.
Well, you have to understand that these are young people at different stages of their relation to the military. You haven't yet served and you're preparing, you're in a different line space, I think, than when you have a lot of experience and you're reflecting and moving to another time, isn't it?
Yeah, the best way I would describe it is if you've ever seen like an old dog play with a young puppy, it's sort of akin to that. It's annoying. They're very excited, glimmer of hope in their eyes and that kind of stuff. And, yeah. a little less rough up here.
Anyone else have thoughts?
Professor Derwin, you do so many different things in your life. How does this fit in, and are you willing to comment about the impact of this work on your own professional life?
Yeah, I don't want them to feel too good about themselves, but yeah, this is the, as my husband would say, the essence. This is the part of my work that really means more to me than anything. I learn from them. I make them learn things. We learn together all the time, and sort of more generally, I really believe that the humanities are tools for living. They're not, literature and writing is not, music and all forms of expression are not things that we do at the end of the day after we work. I really believe that humanities, self-expression, self-knowledge through writing enables one to lead a good life and to have choices. And so it makes one into an active, engaged human being. So when I have the opportunity to work with these, men and women, it's just a thrill as a teacher to see that in action. So yeah, that's why. Other questions? Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I was just going to make one last comment of, as a fellow UCSB grad and veteran, I've been in your shoes, and it's just so wonderful to every time I am just surprised and amazed at the level of sort of detail that people are willing to share with others, and thank you for that. So just wanted to say that.
Well, one more question.
I think you should be for the youth.
The thing is that actually I helped my old school, my old continuation, like Current Academy. After I finish my time in the military, I go back and talk to them about my experiences and how there are different choices that they can make instead of thinking there's only one choice and only one life and only one thing they can do. There's many different choices. There are many different programs that can help you in that urban environment to do better, to be better, because they're in continuation schools. They think they lost all hope, people gave up on them, that they're like outsiders and they don't belong, and because they don't feel like that and they don't have the support, they do bad things, bad decisions that ultimately ruin their life. Like for me, example, I did something dumb. I did a bank robbery charge that maybe I shouldn't have done. And if my principal didn't help me, I would have lived a life of just criminality, more robberies, more drugs, more bad things, But because someone stepped in and helped me out, and because I wanted to take a chance on myself, and I didn't want to become like my friends, I did not want to become like my family members who are in jail, who are in juvenile. I didn't want to be that. I wanted to do better for me and my future family. So that's why I wanted to change. And just telling them that there's options, I feel like it's a really good thing.
There are more sandwiches and cookies and fruits, so eat, bring the food in, chat.